The gut reaction to the speech today?
Well, it was a short speech, which is always good, and I really thought that the governor delivered it. He really invested in this speech, and he's not doing it off the cuff like he used to do. So a scriptured speech. He also talked about tough decisions, which we actually need to have people hold the legislature accountable and say you can't have it easy all the time and expect to run for election again when this state is going into an incredible hole. We're already in the hole. We've got to quit digging even deeper. And he called us to that role, I think, today.
What do you think in terms of, he said, I think you can handle the troops. What's different that General Assemblies of the past that caused this friendship problem, for example, or General Assemblies and governors, legislators or politicians in general, that led to all of these issues that now...
I think that may have been a reference to Governor Blagojevich, who really liked to have a very positive spin on everything. He developed new programs, and we had no money. And the legislature at that point went along with a lot of his ideas. I think this governor has finally realized that there's no money for him to spend during his term. He's not going to be able to ride off into a retirement with new programs that will always be linked to Governor Quinn. But if he can get our state budget back in balance, that's going to be a huge achievement. I'm hoping also that as Speaker Madigan closes in on 30 years as Speaker, that he sees leaving office with a budget that is completely blown apart with no way to pay our bills, that's not the legacy that he would like to have. So I'm hoping that given the enormous power and authority that Speaker Madigan has, that he can work with this governor and ask some of his members, along with some in my caucus, to make tough decisions and say, we can't afford what we have already, and it may be time to close a facility. It may be a time to redesign how we do Medicaid so that we don't give out health care to anybody that crawls across the state line in Illinois. These are tough things to say to people, that we can't afford what we've been doing for you before. But it's the time that we have to make that choice.
Were you bothered that the governor didn't get into specifics on Medicaid and pensions, and that he's leaving that for discussion?
I think that may have been from the reaction of last year's speech, when the governor's budget was put on the shelf and the General Assembly then wrote our own. I think he saw that as maybe a model that we ought to be cooperative between the governor's office and the legislature, so that if he puts too much specifics and lays it out today, I don't think that gets us real far. We need to be involved in discussions with his staff, with his agency directors, and then look at what realistic dollars we have. That's the way to build a budget. And I think being too specific probably wasn't in the interest of the governor or the General Assembly.
What's your reaction to his proposal to close a bunch of tax loopholes?
Well, again, we haven't seen the details. He didn't take the time to lay out those details. I think the example that he used of offshore oiling rigs, again, we don't know the specifics on that, why it originated and ended up in statute. But that sounded like one that reasonably we might be able to look at. And others, we haven't seen any of the detail on yet.
Looking at the budget, any number that jumps out to you as not jiving with reality?
Well, I haven't seen the budget. We were not given the budget ahead of time, so I don't have any numbers that we can really look at, other than, in very gross numbers, about $900 million in new revenue available over last year, and just the increase in pension payments of $1.1 billion and Medicaid expenditures of I think the net was $1.5 billion. We're looking at $2.6 billion in round numbers to only deal with Medicaid, pensions, and health insurance for state employees. $2.6 billion in new spending and only $900 million in new dollars. That's how the rest of the budget, that's why he's trying to reform Medicaid and why he's asking every agency to cut his expenditures by 9%.
And briefly, a reaction to Sanger, that's back on the closure list.
Well, it's much better to do it this way with a planned transition. There's a local organization that's trying to put together, excuse me, trying to manage the Singer as an ongoing facility, but it would be privatized instead of a state-run facility. I think there's some potential there, and if we have long enough, that was the biggest problem with the hearing that we had this winter on closing Singer in like 4 months. We simply had no time to transition or find place for people who are currently being served. So I'm obviously not pleased that we'll have even fewer state employees in Rockford, but if we can handle the citizens who are being cared for in a responsible manner by private industry, I think that may be a good move.